I used to be a weird Warriors kid. Oop. Now the LPS mascot for this podcast is stuck under my desk. Okay, here we go. Take 2. I used to be a weird Warriors kid. Now I'm a weird Warriors adult. Each week I'm discussing a chapter of the iconic books by Aaron Hunter. My name is Charlie. I have a cat named Lucky who just attacked the LPS, and you might hear him a bit throughout this episode. But in today's episode, I will be talking about Chapter 2 of Book 1 of the series The Prophecies Begin, titled Into the Wild. Join me on this adventure into the world of warrior cats. Right before the theme music came in, Lucky knocked down his claw clippers. But also, if you are watching this video version of the podcast, you'll see, and maybe you'll also be able to tell from the audio, that I have a new microphone. I finally decided to get this microphone, and it was actually a graduation gift from my parents. Because I graduated from the University of Cincinnati. I have a bachelor's degree in arts and sciences. I had a major in film and media studies and a minor in women's gender and sexuality studies and a certificate in screenwriting. And I am so glad that I finally graduated. And because I got this mic, it has to clip onto the desk, but it wouldn't really fit onto this pink desk that I use for the podcast. So I moved my bedside table over to attach it, and that led to me rearranging my entire studio apartment. A lot of the furniture is completely moved around, and Lucky's cat tree is now on a table that I moved to be my new bedside table. It's like a pretty big table, so I am fine with having the cat tree take up half the table. And also it gives him a higher place to perch, and you can't see it in the frame right now, unfortunately, but he is perched up high there and he is being very cute. But anyway, so let's get into the topic for today, which is Chapter 2 of Into the Wild. This is a pretty short chapter. It's only about 5 pages, and I'm honestly surprised and confused about why they didn't include it, just make chapters 1 and 2 combined, maybe to make them more bite-sized. But a lot of the chapters in this book, I kind of looked ahead and started counting the pages. A lot of them are more 10 to 15 pages. So to have 2 short chapters in a row after a short prologue, it just feels like they could have combined it. But in Chapter 2, we immediately pick up after where we left off at the end of Chapter 1, and we have this chapter art that definitely looks familiar to me. Maybe it's from a different book cover, but I am not sure. So it's not from the front covers of any of the rest of this series. Maybe I just recognize it from reading these books when I was younger, but yeah, I'm not sure which character that is supposed to be in that art. Oh, yeah. And another thing I wanted to mention is that in the last episode, I was talking about how I was confused about why the book keeps talking about cats spitting. Like it'll say, oh, this character spat. And I'm like, why does it keep saying that? Like, I'm trying to picture a cat spitting. Is this a thing that they do? And I Googled it, and the weird, like, AI overview thing that comes up when you Google stuff now, which is kind of annoying, but I mean, it makes it faster to find answers, but I know it's also not super reliable. And I could go on a whole tangent about how I'm scared of generative AI, especially of in regards of how it like threatens creative industries. But I'm not going to go down that route today. Anyway, let's just read what this says. When I Google cats spitting, it says, cats spit in response to various emotions, primarily fear, anxiety, or perceived threats. Spitting is a heightened emotional response similar to hissing, but more intense. It's an involuntary reaction, not something a cat can consciously control. So, interesting. So, I'm going to try not to be too distracted going forward when it mentions cats spitting, because now we have an explanation. But I feel like sometimes it still says it, even when a cat in the books is not necessarily scared. Like, I feel like there was a moment in the last chapter where Greypaw just spat and he wasn't scared or anxious or anything. Also, I feel like Tiger Claw spat when he was like angry or defensive or in battle. Like, so I don't know. I'm just going to try not to be too distracted by that going forward, because now we've addressed it. And I don't want to keep talking about cats spitting, because there's way more interesting stuff that happens in the actual plot. So here we go into the episode. So, I mean, not episode, chapter. So we had Rusty scared of Blue Star and Lionheart, and Blue Star is now questioning him, saying, well, and then he says, I am no threat to your clan. But she says, you threaten our clan when you take our food. You have plenty of food in your two-leg nest already. You come here only to hunt for sport, but we hunt to survive. And it says, the truth of the warrior queen's words pierced Rusty like a black thorn. And suddenly he understood her anger. So I find this an interesting character trait of Rusty, that his response to anger from another cat is not to immediately get defensive, but instead to think about why they're angry and come to understand their emotions. I think Rusty could be considered an empath in that way. I don't know if that's the right word, but like, he's empathetic and he thinks about not just what their actions are, but the reasons that might be for those actions. And I think that is a honorable and admirable quality of Rusty, but that can come with the risk of becoming a pushover. So we'll see how that pans out going forward. But he says, I had not thought of it that way before. I'm sorry. I will not hunt here again. And then it says, Blue Star let her hackles fall. And for so long when I read these books, I thought when they raise their hackles, it's like raising their hind hips, kind of like when they're crouched down and getting ready to pounce. Like, I thought that's what that was whenever I would picture it in my head. But when I Googled like a cat's hackles, let's see. Yeah, it shows pictures of like cats raising their, arching their back with their fur standing on end, which I call like the Halloween cat pose. Especially Lucky actually does that a lot, and he's a black cat, so he definitely looks like art of cats that we see around Halloween time. So I guess that's what she was doing, was like arching her back like that. But then when she let her hackles fall, it's kind of relaxing. And she says, "You are an unusual kitty pet, Rusty." Then Grey Paw sighs with relief, and Blue Star and Lionheart share a meaningful glance, which I don't know what that meaningful glance is about. I don't remember. But it does seem like their glance is important, because it does say, "The look made him curious. What flashed between the two warriors?" And then he asks, "Is survival here really so hard?" And Blue Star explains about how their territory is only in part of the forest and how the clans compete for food. And Rusty asks if the clan is very big, and Blue Star says it's big enough, but they don't have any prey left over after the whole clan is fed. And Rusty asks if they're all warriors, and Lionheart says some are, others are too young or too old or too busy caring for kits to hunt. And so this is definitely pretty exposition-y, but I think it is well done in the sense that, like, it's showing Rusty's curiosity, like his genuine curiosity, and it makes sense because he is unfamiliar with the world that he is learning about. So I think it's not annoying to me how exposition-y it is. And then Rusty asks, "And you all live and share prey together?" And then Blue Star looks at Lionheart again, and then Blue Star looks at Rusty and says, "Perhaps you should find out these things for yourself. Would you like to join ThunderClan?" Now this is like, oh my god, what is happening? And I guess maybe that's what their look between Blue Star and Lionheart was like, should we invite him to join the clan? But it also feels like sort of out of nowhere. And then Blue Star says that if he did join, he could train with Grey Paw to become a warrior. And then Grey Paw says, "But kitty pets can't be warriors." And now that I'm reading this passage, it does. Yeah, okay, so this is the snippet from the beginning of the book that I said I wasn't gonna read because I thought it might be from Fire and Ice, the second book. But I did see that first line, and when I saw this here, I recognized it. So this is like the passage that they decided to include at the very beginning of the book as kind of a teaser, I guess. And Grey Paw says, "They don't have warrior blood." And there's more of that theme of like what you're born as is your destiny biologically. And as a trans woman, I just kind of feel like it could be interpreted as transcoded. And then Blue Star says, "Warrior blood, too much of that has been spilled lately." And then Lionheart explains that this is only an offer for training. There's not a guarantee that he'll become a full warrior, and it might be too difficult. You might prefer your comfortable life. And then Rusty is like, "But why offer me the chance then?" And Blue Star says, "You're right to question our motives, young one. The fact is, ThunderClan needs more warriors." And that ThunderClan needs more warriors, there was like a old video on the Warriors website that I would watch on repeat, and I feel like I eventually memorized it. It was like the Warriors Super Edition book trailer. Maybe I'll make a bonus video where I react to that and show it to you. But it was so iconic. In that, they show like a different quote that's narrated from several of the characters, and one of them is from Blue Star, and the quote is, "ThunderClan needs more warriors." So, yeah. Anyway, so I'm still getting used to how I want to kind of go about this podcast because I feel like I'm reading a lot of the chapter word for word, but I don't know. If you do end up subscribing to the paid version, please give me feedback if you like the format I'm doing. I personally enjoy it, but I don't know. I'm curious how you feel about it. And right now I have like just a couple subscribers and 0 paid subscribers. I'm fully starting this like from a very, very small following. So I don't know. I'm doing this mostly for fun, but I also do welcome feedback, and I do want to be putting out good quality content. So just let me know if you do end up watching this or listening. So yeah. But anyway, Lionheart says, understand that Blue Star does not make this offer lightly. If you wish to train with us, we'll have to take you into our clan. You must either live with us and respect our ways, or return to your two-leg place and never come back. You cannot live with a paw in each world. Oh my god, it's like so intense. It's so dramatic. It's so iconic. But yeah, that does feel very binary to be like, you have to pick either this or that. Blue Star says, are you wondering if it's worth giving up your comfortable kitty pet life? But do you realize the price you will pay for your warmth and food? I felt like the way that was worded was a little bit confusing to me. Are you wondering if it's worth giving up your comfortable kitty pet life? But do you realize the price you will pay for your warmth and food? I feel like it makes sense, but I'm also like, just the way it was worded was slightly confusing. And then Blue Star says, I can tell that you are still a Tom, which like feels like such a random pivot. But he says, what do you mean still a Tom? She says, you haven't yet been taken by the two legs. Oh, whoa. Lucky's food dispenser just dispensed and he flew down from his cat tree. She says, you haven't yet been taken by the two legs to see the Cutter. And this is like so ominous, and Cutter is capitalized. She says, you would be very different then. Not quite so keen to fight a clan cat, I suspect. And then Rusty was confused. He thinks of Henry and how he changed after he visited the vet. And basically this is confirming that being neutered is what makes a cat act less feral, which actually I'm curious if that's true. Let me Google that real quick. Do cats act different after being spayed or neutered? Let's see what the AI overview says. It says, yes, cats can exhibit behavioral changes after spaying or neutering, but these changes are typically positive and often related to hormonal shifts. Spaying/neutering reduces hormones that can contribute to aggressive and territorial behaviors, particularly in males, according to cats.com and coronadopethospital.com. Here's a more detailed look at how spaying/neutering might affect a cat's behavior. For male cats, reduced aggression. Neutering can decrease the likelihood of fights, hissing, and growling, especially between male cats. Less roaming. Neutered males are less likely to wander in search of mates. Reduced spraying. Neutering can minimize or eliminate urine spraying, which is a common territorial behavior in male cats. More docile. Some neutered male cats may become more relaxed and docile. For female cats, calmer behavior. Spaying eliminates the heat cycle and can reduce territorial aggression and stress associated with it. Reduced vocalizations. Female cats may vocalize less after spaying. So that's interesting. They did base it on reality. But anyway, Blue Star then says the clan may not be able to offer you such easy food or warmth. In the season of Leaf Bear, nights in the forest can be cruel. The clan will demand great loyalty and hard work. You will be expected to protect the clan with your life if necessary. And there are many mouths to feed, but the rewards are great. You will remain a Tom. You will be trained in the ways of the wild. You will learn what it is to be a real cat. The strength and the fellowship of the clan will always be with you, even when you hunt alone. And then it says, Rusty's head reeled. Blue Star seemed to be offering him the life he had lived so many times and so tantalizingly in his dreams. But could he live like that for real? And then Lionheart says we need to leave. Tiger Claw will wonder what has become of us. And Rusty says, can I think about your offer? And Blue Star says, Lionheart will be here tomorrow at sun high. Give him your answer then. And then Blue Star, Lionheart, and Grey Paw all disappear. Then Rusty heads home, and it says he felt a strange sensation inside him, tugging him back into the depths of the forest. And then it says his fur prickled deliciously. Interesting wording. In the light wind, and the rustling leaves seemed to whisper his name into the shadows. And that's the end of chapter 2. So it's a pretty short chapter, but it is an important one because it is when Rusty gets officially invited to join ThunderClan. So this is such an iconic beginning to this series. I mean, it's not really the beginning because we already read the prologue and chapter 1. This is chapter 2, but we're still in the beginning phase of the story, and it's very exciting. So thank you so much for listening, and yeah, Lucky is so cute. He's my little warrior. Well, he's a kitty pet, but he's a warrior at heart. And yeah, so thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful week. And we'll see you next time. This has been Into the World of Warrior Cats.